There's always a safety net in doing things the way we've always done it because it's tried and true. We've done it for decades and it's worked in the past. But we also have to be adaptable and we have to look at continuous improvement. And even when we deliver things successfully, like the track improvement program, I'm not resting on those laurels because now we have to get even better. And I've told the team, and they know it, we can be even more efficient, even more productive in those windows.
Welcome back to another episode of Spilling the Tea, the podcast where we bring you behind the scenes of the MBTA to share the stories, challenges, and progress shaping our transit system. I'm your host, Andrew Cassidy of the MBTA's Customer and Employee Experience Department, and today we're thrilled to have a familiar voice back on the show, MBTA General Manager and CEO, Phil Eng. In our last conversation, Phil provided insights into the MBTA's track improvement program and the steps being taken to enhance rider experience. This time, we're shifting gears to focus on 2025. From planned upgrades to the MBTA's power and signal systems, to single tracking and the transformative impact of Governor Healey's $8 billion transportation funding announcement, we'll explore what riders can expect in both the short and long term. Phil, welcome back to the podcast. Can you briefly recap the progress and achievements of the MBTA's track improvement program, how that work really set the stage for what we can expect in 2025?
Well, Andrew, I'll try to be brief, but the amount of work and progress that we've done is monumental. And I'll say that it is not only the track work that we've done and fulfilled to the riders that we've promised that we would lift all the speed restrictions that existed and continue to maintain them going forward, but is that start of that culture shift of being able to do things bigger and better, bolder, making commitments and actually following through on them. And that was an internal shift as well as an external shift working with our partners in the industry. But it's a true testament to the workforce that we've started to rebuild and help give them the tools and guidance, directions, and decisions that could help them be more successful. And we're seeing it every day in everybody pushing themselves, making decisions sooner, and really seeing the morale and the spirits when you walk the track with folks, when you see them out there delivering on things that in the past they've not had the opportunity to do. And then the results where our riders are feeling the benefits. So there's so many things to get into without talking about all the thousands of feet of track and the number of ties that we've replaced. I think this is a point in time where we're building a strong foundation. And as the governor said, we're stabilizing the MBTA. So now we can do bigger and better things going forward as we maintain the system that we have today.
Now, I know you would never be the person to say this, but you've played a significant role in obviously this transformation of the MBTA, and you've been a very visible figure since coming on board. You've also been very accessible to the riding public to the point where they've nicknamed you Train Daddy Eng. And there was even that Boston Globe article all about it. You know, there are people calling for statues and the like. But how do you think that connection that you have with our riding public, how do you think that helps with that success?
Well, the connection with the riding public, part of it is, as you mentioned, being more accessible, being out there, sharing information. I think there's always this, when you don't hear what is happening, why it's happening, there's this tendency to think the worst, lose trust, but the ability to actually be just like the riding public, and we all are, understanding day to day what they experience. And as you mentioned, speaking to them when they offer to share their thoughts has been instrumental in a lot of good feedback, tough feedback, but invaluable feedback that allows us to continue to shape our decisions. Because at the end of the day, it's about the level of service that they need, they deserve, and they want that we have to make sure that we're focused on. Safety, reliability, more robust service on all our modes, and the ability to know that when they say something, it's being heard. I think that goes a long way as well. And then the ability to share that back with the team. And I've had the benefit of the public acceptance, and that has helped me be able to continue to do what I do. and it's very humbling. And I hope, though, and I think I've seen it just even recently, the MBTA workforce is taking pride in all of this because they've all contributed to this, from top down within the organization and at the very highest levels of leadership here in Massachusetts, from Governor Healey, Lieutenant Governor Driscoll, their administration, all the legislative support, as well as the MBTA board, and then our riders at the other end who are really rooting for us. And that's what it's about. It's that hometown feel. It's ours. We take pride in it, and we're going to make it best in class.
There you have it. You've already sworn off New York. Boston's now your hometown. That's it.
I love Boston.
That's great.
I love Massachusetts. The people that we serve, the communities that we serve, we live right next door to them, right? And our families interact with them all the time. And we are doing exactly as them, trying to get from point A to point B, whether it's for work, whether it's for fun, for all the diverse culture that exists in Massachusetts, all the landmarks and all the things that all the borders of Massachusetts have, whether it's water, mountains, hiking, skiing, swimming. It's all tied to mobility and access to sound, reliable public transportation. And we're part of that. And without us, all the other modes of transportation can't absorb the needs. That's what makes a thriving economy. That's what makes a vibrant, livable area. And whether you're in the rural areas, whether you're in the suburbs, whether you're in the urban areas, mobility and freedom of transportation and options is quality of life. And I'm so happy and privileged to be a part of that.
It's definitely a special place. And I actually just had a coffee with a friend of mine who moved here from LA, and he was talking about his love for the accessibility of transportation in Boston because, while he was over there, someone's 45 minutes away for driving and he just knows it's a nightmare. He's not going to go see those friends. Whereas now he feels that he has access not just to Boston, but all the other communities that we serve by using the T. And it's just such a monumental shift in how you live your day-to-day life. And again, I've been a prisoner of traffic before in other cities, and it really is such a privilege to be able to utilize a functioning, robust public transportation system. I've heard you say at recent interviews and kind of press events, there's a new way of doing business at the MBTA. Can you expand on what exactly this means and what changes are being made to improve the efficiency, accountability, and service delivery?
Well, I'll say this. There's always a safety net in doing things the way we've always done it because it's tried and true. We've done it for decades and it's worked in the past. But we also have to be adaptable and we have to look at continuous improvement. And even when we deliver things successfully, like the track improvement program, I'm not resting on those laurels because now we have to get even better. And I've told the team, and they know it, we can be even more efficient, even more productive in those windows. Having said that, I'm not looking to always do these types of diversions where riders have to get onto shuttle buses, whether it's 5 days, whether it's 9 days, whether it's 20 days, right? How do we continue to improve, maintain our system, do work that needs to be done short term, but build for the future? And that's us now looking at different ways of access. And we've talked about it. We're now implementing single tracking where our infrastructure allows it. Just recently we had an issue on the Red Line and operations went right into single tracking during the morning rush hour. And then they repaired it a little bit later when the headways were a little better for that. And guess what? It was really almost invisible to the public, whereby in the past, we would have done that with shutting the service down between certain stations and then busing.
Could you explain what single tracking is just for our riders?
So single tracking is the ability to keep people on the trains in this case, but the ability then to cross the trains over to the other side of the track and bypass perhaps an incident. And that allows us to have access time to a location, whether it be for maintenance in the future or corrective repairs that are scheduled or corrective repairs that are unplanned. That type of thing is something that we're looking at and we're going to start implementing. Where our infrastructure doesn't support it because we don't have those crossovers and the ability to move trains in that fashion from one side to the other, what we're going to do is incorporate that into our future capital plans, projects that were once done only through closing systems and closing stations. We're going to have that part built into a project, right? If the implementation of a crossover allowing us a single track gives the contractor or our own workforces a dedicated work zone, we could be more efficient in the work we do. We could shorten the schedule of the work. We could shorten the impacts to the riders, and we could also reduce costs. And at the same time, by giving a dedicated work zone, it's safer. It's more efficient for the workforce. And in that way, we're going to minimize impacts to the riders. It doesn't mean from time to time the need for buses doesn't exist or won't be used. It just means we can mitigate that going forward. And that's the kind of strategies that we look at internally. Operations is always looking at how they make timely decisions moving forward. I think you heard most recently in the podcast from Sam Zhao that he's always creatively looking to deliver these projects. And the mantra, on time, on budget, but we always joke around that, under budget and ahead of schedule is something that we're going to push. And when we get more aggressive and we hold ourselves to that level, we're going to set schedules and goals that are putting us on the edge, being a little uncomfortable. But that's not a bad thing. And if you miss it by a little bit, it doesn't mean we've failed. It just means we continue to push ourselves to be better and better and better, and we know we can. And that means we could make our dollars, and they're very precious, go further, right? Improving service for the public, more reliable, more robust, but delivering these projects in a way that maybe they didn't believe that we could. And that's, again, back to the original thing I said, getting ourselves to believe we can and getting our industry partners to know that we can with us, and then letting the public start to see that we are truly moving in a new direction with a new way of doing business.
Internally and externally, I think it's been clear to notice that there is a new way of doing business for the T. And it's interesting to see things like single tracking being implemented, where, again, it's not just focusing on that single large scale project. It's really more that day to day. How do we shift, improve, and evolve as an organization? So where we are now, track improvement plan, huge, big check mark. However, there's still work to be done at the MBTA. I know you've mentioned in the past the need to address both signal and power issues. And obviously those things can still impact our riders' journeys on the day to day. What does 2025 look like for the MBTA? If tracks are done, what's ahead? And what sort of things is the MBTA looking to do over the next year?
Let me just add a little bit on the track piece before I dive into signals. As you mentioned, the tracks are done in the perspective that we've eliminated the speed restrictions. All of the ones that have been there for years. And we couldn't be more proud of that, having known that speed restrictions existed on our system for at least 20 plus years. We have so much more track work to be done. But I think we demonstrated that when we had assessed our assets for track on our heavy and light rail, we had estimated a $2 billion need to fix our tracks. Now, we didn't get $2 billion, but we have fixed our tracks to the level that we could run safe, reliable service. Now, moving forward, we're going to continue to invest in track. At the same time, we're going to invest in our signals. The signal contract, the upgrades of the red and orange lines, they've been long delayed as well. Last year, we started to actually provide access for catching up and moving that project along. This year, we're going to be more aggressive with regards to it. But again, we're going to minimize the impact to the riders. We're going to do a lot of that on weekends. And we're actually doing some of that right now as we speak during early access. And again, single tracking to provide that early access, keeping people on the trains, minimizing the need for bus and the cost that goes with the busing. So those are the things as we look at how do we accelerate the signaling contracts, because once we get those red and orange line signals modernized and replaced, now operations has more flexibility, more capability to not only run trains as scheduled, but to change trains, patterns, and moves if things arise. And they could do that much more remotely. They could do that much quicker. And again, minimizing impacts to the riders, improving the experience to our riders, and just giving operations the ability to succeed. We are also working on our power grid. A lot of the work on the power grid does not need track access, so that will not be as visible in terms of closures or diversions and things of that nature. But we also know power, signal, track, they all go together. But we're also going to stay focused on rolling stock. We've been buying non-powered coaches for commuter rail. Red and orange line cars continue to come in on the new schedule, and they continue to perform on the levels that exceed the contractual requirements, which is fantastic because as we take out the old red line cars and put more new red line cars in, orange is all running on new cars. That is another area of potential delays that we're eliminating. And then again, the signals continue to focus on track. It's exciting because all of these are building towards that robust, reliable service. And then if you get back to it, we're going to stay focused on our workforce because that workforce is instrumental. They're our most important asset. And without them, we cannot do what we're doing. Whether you are a motor person, bus operator, operating a commuter rail, which we are moving towards regional rail as we make it more frequent, more accessible, and decarbonize. So those are the exciting things ahead. But this is only a snapshot in time. Our ultimate goal is to provide that level of service that really makes this best in class.
That's a lot to take in. And it reminds me of, I think it was the first press conference where you were introduced and you were asked the question, Phil, what is your priority? And you said everything. And I mean, again, 2025 looks to have exactly that. It is a holistic look ahead, both on infrastructure, rolling stock. And as you said, there's going to be a lot of work. We're obviously trying to minimize impact to riders with innovative approaches like single tracking. But what can riders expect knowing that there is so much work ahead and so much more that still needs to be done in 2025?
Well, I think what they should expect is that with everything that we're doing, we are incrementally making our system more reliable and incrementally as we deliver meaningful projects. And that's the intent. Everything that we invest in, every decision that we make to move forward with is what does it mean to the riders and what does it mean to our operations in terms of being able to meet the riders' needs and expectations. I think what they'll see is that with each one of these steps, they will see a much more reliable trip every day. They will see frequencies improve incrementally, perhaps, because we've made such big changes now. But our goal is to, and when I say goal, our intent is to shorten headways on the branches, to continue to improve headways in the trunks of our system, to increase frequencies on the buses, to take a look at water transportation and see how do we build off of that and improve within the inner harbor as well as the outer harbor. And then looking at regional rail, the battery electric multiple unit effort that we're going to do on Fairmont Line is exciting because not only will that 10 miles be decarbonized and electrified, but that allows us to really explore BEMUs on other corridors. And we did this on this 10 miles even though originally in the past we've not had enough capital resources to put catenary along the whole corridor, we knew that we could put catenary along portions of it and actually deliver meaningful, clean, efficient regional rail service in this corridor sooner than anyone had thought. We're excited about that piece because this is the future of MBTA as we make it more reliable and more affordable and the best choice to use for transportation will get people out of their vehicles. And that in itself is helping improve air quality, climate, and the environment. But then we're looking at our own means and methods of how do we get people from point A to point B and continuing to look at that with whether it's electric buses as well as other means and methods.
What I find interesting is that it's not only about the one-off of, fine, we're getting a battery electric, or, hey, we now have a new route on the ferry. It's the scalability, which speaks to the commitment to growth and evolution for the MBTA. So we had Mike Muller on the show a couple of months back. We were talking about commuter rail and the battery electric commuter rail vehicles. And I didn't realize that, again, it wasn't just the battery piece. This particular model allows for areas where there isn't catenary to be utilized, but then obviously instead of electrifying the entirety of it, finding those key points where you can use catenary to charge and just progressively do that. That speaks to very long-term strategic thinking. And I think it really says a lot to our public that we see a future ahead of us. And given that public perception, I guess it leads me to my next question, which is, do you think that our ridership in the region as a whole is more, they find diversions to be more palatable following the success of the track improvement program and knowing that there are these more long-term strategic visions?
I think the ridership and the public can accept these diversions if we deliver on the results that we've promised. But at the same time, just because we accept them doesn't mean that's the only way of getting work done. I need to make sure that we have access so the employees, whether it's internal or external, have safe areas to work, and they can be efficient, maximizing the time that we've allotted. But at the same time, it's not just using diversions, it's how do we run alternative service that supports the diversions. That has to be sufficient, but also that we meet schedules, right? Because if we announce the information early enough, people can plan when work is being performed. And I remember a lot of community outreach in many past projects where it's best to keep the communities that you're working within knowledgeable of the work ahead, because then they can know, well, that's only one weekend, that's only a week. If it's a noisy operation, if it comes upon them one night and wakes them up, but they didn't know that it was only one night, the initial thought is, I'm not going to put up with that. And they shouldn't. What we need to do is make sure we communicate properly, transparently, and frequent, not only during planning, not only during design, but through construction. That's what we're committed to. And then during day-to-day operations, just making sure that we build communications where our riders know how service is, how it's improving, or if there's a challenge. MBTA Go is a new way of doing business as well. Not everyone has technology, so we want to make sure that we also are looking at how we make announcements, how we use digital screens in our stations, how do we use the PA system in stations and on trains. All of that goes hand in hand, plus all the public things that we use, whether it's radio, media, billboards, all these tie together. The public needs that information. They deserve that information, and that's our commitment. And at the same time, that same level of communication is important as we scope and make decisions on service needs and where we want to grow service, as well as what projects we decide to choose and move forward with. There's so much on the horizon that's exciting. From South Coast Rail, that's coming. It's real. To just continuing to expand our service across all of our modes. It's exciting, and it is a fantastic time to be part of the MBTA, fantastic time to be part of the Commonwealth, because it is a great place to live, work, and play, and really privileged to be here.
It is absolutely an exciting time. And it's also important to note that it's an exciting time just because these aren't only ideas. They are being acted upon. They're being fleshed out. And the future for the MBTA and therefore Massachusetts and the region is increasingly bright. And I guess along that same note, the governor recently announced a fairly significant financial announcement for the MBTA. And it's a big deal. Can you provide an overview of the money that she has earmarked or is pushing for the MBTA and what that really means to the organization, both in the short term and the long term?
Well, this governor has shown a commitment to the Commonwealth and the public that we serve. And she talked about it when we were discussing my role about transportation and just how important it was, and their commitment to our workforce and a commitment to transportation. And not just MBTA transportation. This is transportation across the Commonwealth. And that was exciting to hear back then. The announcement recently about the proposed budget to address our fiscal cliff is a stamp and a reaffirmation of that commitment, because everything we've seen to date is those dollars that have been allotted us in the previous budgets to grow the workforce, to train the workforce, to ensure safety of the workforce is paying dividends. And it's not just within the MBTA, but it's the benefits that the riders are feeling and seeing in the communities and businesses that we serve. And now we have stability. We have the ability to start looking, how do we make this workforce even better and deliver these projects differently? Going back to that new way of doing business, we are going to be more efficient. I'm committed that I know we can be. At the same time, as we deliver these projects that deliver the results for the public, we have an obligation, and that's my commitment, that I don't take this proposed budget lightly, because I owe it to everybody to fulfill the expectations and the promise that I made when I came. We're going to build an MBTA that everyone can be proud of, and one that works with our partners. And again, not just in the communities that we have stations in, but our partners across the Commonwealth. Because how we interact with the RTAs, how people who want to use our system, when they get to one of our stations and know that they can, is vital. And I think it's important for them to know that we are not taking these dollars lightly. we have an obligation to deliver efficiently, effectively, and make sure that the projects we choose, the service we choose to provide does meet the needs, not only for today, but we're building for the future. And the future is here.
So $8 billion for public transportation is obviously an enormous amount of money. We've been talking about our fiscal cliff for years now. And with that no longer looming in the way it was in the past, what does that really mean for the MBTA? How does that change the game? What does that allow us to do that maybe previously, given prior financial constraints, we might not have been able to do?
I think it allows us to continue to develop the workforce that we've just invested so much time and money into. It allows us to focus on service improvements and not have to discuss whether or not service modifications, meaning less service, are on the table. It means that the workforce that we have can confidently know that working at the MBTA is secure for them. And this is a place for them to be able to build a future. And those are the folks that are going to be the future leaders. And not only just here at MBTA, but the world is open to them because the experience they're going to have in operating a system here is going to be invaluable to their future. And I hope they stay here as leaders, but it also is what makes wanting to work here. You get that experience that you may not get in so many other places. And when you're delivering the meaningful results that our riders are actually starting to feel, you get that pride in wanting to do even better. And all of that will add up to what we envisioned when we ventured down this road just a few years ago, right? The MBTA is not looking to what others are doing. The MBTA is going to be a leader, and we're going to deliver best-in-class service for the public here in the Commonwealth, and really excited about the future. Again, I can't thank the Healey Driscoll administration enough for that support, but I also want to thank the workforce because that has demonstrated that an investment in transportation is an investment in the people and the public that we serve.
Looking back on 2024, what would you say you're most proud of?
I am proud of when I see the leadership team and the workforce making decisions that are consistent with where we're driving. And that is tied to the culture shift that I've talked about. The ability for us to really message down throughout the organization is important. And I guess I would tie that to the fact that we are able to deliver things that the public cares about is just as important because that's what we're here to do. And there's nothing more exciting than to know that we've made people's lives better, both people that work here at MBTA and the people that we serve.
And now looking ahead to 2025 and beyond, what is your vision for the MBTA's role in shaping the future of transportation in Massachusetts? Dream big.
Well, that is why I intend to start getting out to the different communities and really starting to have those dialogues with them. Because part of what I envision is going to be part of what others envision as well. We are going to have to work hand in hand with those communities to make sure that if they start to build, if they start to want to grow, which I know they do, how do we make sure that we're able to accommodate those needs? How do we make sure that we're not a step behind them? And then to really take a look at projects that have been stalled, projects that have been talked about, and let's see which ones we think we need to move forward. At the same time, don't preclude the other ones. What we're looking at is even more robust service than we have today on the corridors that we have, but also making sure if there's transit deserts, how do we deliver some public transportation options for them as well? So there's connectivity among the modes. And that connectivity, when you're running more frequent, when you have less waits, allows it to be very seamless, whether it's a one-seat ride or a multiple-seat ride. If you're not waiting long between modes, and if it's right there when you get to the station, it makes it a lot easier to choose public transportation. And I've said this so many times, I want public transportation to be the preferred mode. And I'm already seeing it. Even during last year, with all the work we've done, I started to see ridership start to, on the uptick. And That's just my visual of what I'm observing as I'm riding the system. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the numbers in 2025 and then beyond, because that's what it's about. How do I move even more people than we've carried in the past?
I'm looking forward to it. The future is bright.
Absolutely. There is light at the end of the tunnel, and we're excited about as we get closer and closer. But our mission will never end. It will be always about continuous improvement. And how do we be better at what we do? Because we can't let up. And we're going to always throttle up, and we're going to keep going forward. It's full T ahead.
Phil, thank you for once again taking the time to speak with our riders. It's shaping up to be a pretty exciting year already.
Absolutely. Look out. The best is yet to come.
To our listeners, thank you for tuning in to Spilling the Tea. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts to stay up to date on the latest news and stories from the MBTA. If you have any questions or suggestions for future episodes, please send us an email to social@mbta.com. We love hearing your ideas and feedback and working them into the show. Until next time, I'm Andrew Cassidy, and this has been Spilling the Tea.